You've heard of meat sweats? Well, this Queso Chorizo is going to give you the cheese sweats. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a Queso Chorizo sausage. This is going to be a really flavorful and creamy sausage with a lot of dynamic flavors. I'm going to be using our number 555 Fresh Chorizo seasoning as a base flavor for this sausage. Here I decided to pair it with some elote topping, but this sausage is going to be really versatile and has lots of uses. So let's back up a bit and I'll show you how we got here. First thing we need to do is break down our meat block. We're going to be making our sausage with some pork butt or pork shoulder. It's really easily accessible in most markets. It's going to come with your bone, so what we got to do is we got to get that bone out of there and cut this up into grinder-sized pieces. And I also have some leftover trim from a previous sausage that I had frozen. So I think it was about time to get that out of the freezer, and we'll add this in with our pork butt as well. Now before I started this, I got my casings soaking. I gave them a good rinse, and I'll have them sit there soaking on the counter for about 45 minutes. So it's the first thing I do when I make sausage, because as you break down your meat block, you grind, and then you mix everything together, the casings are sitting there soaking, so you're not wasting any time. I'm just gonna go through and cut off the pork, that bone out of there. Now this is a little frozen because I had it in the freezer, and that's just fine. That's just gonna really help our grind. It's gonna keep our meat nice and cold to avoid any smearing during the grinding and mixing process. Once you get your meat block all cut up and ready for the grinder, you want to keep it nice and cold still, so we're going to set this in the fridge while we get our grinder set up. So I've got our grinder here set up with our 3/8 inch plate for our first grind. We've got our nice cold meat. We're going to go through our first grind, and then we'll switch out our plates to a 3/16 for our second grind. And in with our second grind. Now this grind looks really, really nice. You can see the particle definition, the separation of the protein and the fat still, which is a really good sign. It means we shouldn't have any issues with smearing, which can affect our flavor, our texture. So we're looking in really good shape here. I'm gonna push some ice through our auger now to get as much of that meat block out as possible, and then we'll be ready to start mixing in our seasoning and our inclusions. For our sausage, we're going to be using our number 555 Fresh Chorizo seasoning. We also have a smoked chorizo seasoning, and if you buy that unit, it will come with the cure needed to add into your meat block for smoking. We're making a fresh sausage, so we went with the fresh option. Our meat block is about 12 pounds, so I need to weigh out the appropriate amount of seasoning for our meat block size. These are designed for 25 pounds, so all I did was do the little math, figured out that I need 228 grams of seasoning. Now with chorizo, this is gonna be a little spicy, so when you pour this out, be careful, because if that gets up in the air, it's gonna make you cough a bit. Now this can go right into our meat block. Again, nice and gentle as we pour that in. We're gonna save the scale so we can weigh out our cheese in just a minute, but we're gonna get the mix started and get that protein extraction working so we have a nice good bind in our meat. For our liquid, we're gonna use beer. We're using a nice Mexican beer here. When you add liquid, that's just gonna add moisture to our meat block, keep the juiciness, but when we're using beer like this, it's gonna add a little bit of flavor too. Pretty well mixed, and we've got a really nice even coloration, which lets me know that we're got a good mix on our meat block. We're also nice and tacky, which means our protein extraction has started to take hold. And this is the perfect time to start adding our inclusions. Our first inclusion is going to be some diced green chilies. You can find these in the world food section of pretty much any grocery store at this point. We're going to be using these at a 10% rate. For our queso sausage, we want a lot of cheese. 10% is a pretty standard rate for an inclusion on cheese, but since we're focusing on the queso part, we're gonna up that to 15. We're gonna be using 3 different types of cheeses: Pepperjack, Cheddar, and Queso Fresco. So I'm gonna start weighing those out and add them into our meat block. Cheddar, Pepperjack, And the last cheese we're going to be using is Queso Fresco. The other two cheeses we have for inclusions are high temp cheeses, which are going to hold up really nice in our sausage. but this lacks the moisture for melt out like a lot of other cheeses, like a cheddar would. So this Queso Fresco should hold its form once it's in there. We do have to dice it up so that it is the same size as our other included cheeses. Now this is a 9-ounce block, so I know this is the right amount, so I can go right into our meat block without having to weigh it. Lastly, we're gonna use some tortilla chips ground up as somewhat of a binder. It's also gonna add a little saltiness, but really, it's gonna help keep those fats into our sausage so that we don't lose any flavor or moisture. Binders, you use at a rate of anywhere between 2 and 3%, so we're gonna shoot for about 2.5, which means I need 5 ounces. And in we go. Now we'll go for one last mix to get all our inclusions evenly distributed throughout the meat block. And in no time, we'll be ready to start casing our sausages. We've got our sausage stuffer set up with our 3/4-inch horn. And as I load the meat block in, we're gonna start from the center and push it down so it works its way outward toward the walls. And this will help us avoid any air pockets. We'll bring the plunger down about 90% of the way. And once we start feeling that pressure, we're gonna watch for the meat block to start coming out of the horn here. And as soon as that touches your finger, you want to back off the pressure so you can start loading your casings. Going through, there it is, and back off the pressure. Let's load on some casings. We're using a 32 to 35 millimeter Natural Hog Casing. It's the most widely used, at least in my experience, natural casing. The size works really well for both a link that you could put on a platter or on a bun. So these have been soaking for about 45 minutes at this point. So we'll get this going and we'll get one final rinse through the casing here. So we'll open it up on one end and we'll pull some water through. This will give it one final rinse. It'll help untangle the casing as we load it onto the stuffer. And it'll lube up the horn. Just thread it on. You can see the water going through there. But as you thread it on, it all comes out. We're ready to start casing. We'll get some water down on the counter here so that once the sausage is fully cased, it has somewhere to slide. And here we go. I'm going to use 2 fingers on the end of the casing here and to give slight pressure on the horn as the meat block comes out to keep it nice and stuffed. And then we're going to give ourselves about 2 inches on the end. Back off the pressure. We'll link up that in a minute. But we'll get the rest of this meat block out of here and load on another casing. Now we're just going to link these up. Going to keep them about the same size as a brat, just to keep it simple. Plus then we can throw them on the bun later with our elote topping. It's going to be really tasty. And after this, we'll take our sausage pricker, go through and eliminate as many air pockets as possible. And then, good thing about a fresh sausage is you don't have to wait too long before grilling them up. You do want to wait a little bit, kind of let those flavors even out, let the casings dry out a little bit. You'll just have an overall better product if you let them rest for a little while. But then we'll be ready for the grill and we'll be ready to try these bad boys. Now I'm just going to link these up, or unlink these should I say, lay them on a tray, set them in the fridge. Get those casings starting to dry out. Let those flavors all melt together nicely. Tidy up a bit, and then we can try our Queso Chorizo. I started these on a temperate 350-degree grill, and I put them over indirect heat to start. I basically fully cooked them like that, and then I moved them over direct heat to get some sear on them right at the end. And these look good enough to eat, I will say that. So we'll get these done up, and we'll be ready to try our sausage. I have some heated up corn here and a mayo sour cream and elote loco mixture. Got some cotija cheese in here as well. And this is going to be like a street corn topping for our queso chorizo. So we're just going to mix that in and we'll top our sausages. Lastly, a little bit of cilantro. And these are just beautiful. Now with any sausage, we want to try it by itself first, just to see if we achieved our flavor profile that we were looking for. So we're going to cut right into this, and hopefully we'll get a good look at those inclusions that we have in there as well. And I'd say we do. That is really nice, really juicy, but you got your diced green chili, got some cheddar here, some pepperjack, and even the queso fresco in there. So this looks really nice. So let's give ourselves a little slice. There we go. That is a wonderful sausage. It has to be one of the juiciest I've ever made. So those tortilla chips holding in some of that moisture, not letting that fat bleed out during the cooking process, comes in really clutch. Whew. A little bit of heat with the chorizo flavor, but the green chili gives a nice sweetness, and the creaminess that those 3 cheeses at that 15% inclusion, just outstanding. What a delicious, delicious sausage. I think we need to talk about how versatile this sausage could be too. You could put this in a queso fundido. You could use this for breakfast. You can make some tacos out of this, or you can throw it in a bun with some elote topping. This is a really unique and cool sausage that you can do a lot with. I really hope you get to try this sausage yourself. And for all the inclusions and everything you would need, head to psseasoning.com for more information. If you liked the video, click subscribe, and as always, check us out on all forms of social media. Till next time, I'm Chef Jed. Thanks for watching.